America. This is our course called Conversations That Break Through. This is how to have those hard conversations. We're going to cover the gamut from having conversations with strong Dems and asking them to do more than vote. And then we're going to talk about reaching out to our swing voters, our persuadables, and then also our infrequent voters or our non-voters. So we're going to build up our empathy for these various types of people, and then also be talking about how we can build up those skills so we can have really good, effective conversations. Let's dive on in. Couple friendly norms as we get started. So did I hit record? 1 second. Okay, we're good. Couple friendly norms as we get started. So if you can keep yourself muted, it just really helps keep the background noise down. So, but I don't want it just your experience here just to be listening to me. You are in a room of like-minded people. So use that chat feature. So I'll show you a couple ways to get over to chat, but definitely use that chat feature. Say hello. Introduce yourself, let us know where you're joining us from. We're a nationwide group, so we got people coming in from all across the country. It's great to see that energy from across the country. And got a lot to get through in this hour, but I'm going to try and keep it to that 1 hour, 1 hour mark. So again, I want to make sure you can find the chat so you can participate over there. If you're on a phone or a tablet, it's actually going to be under the little 3 ellipses down at the bottom. That's where you're going to find your chat. And then if you're on a regular screen, you'll see chat down there. At the end, when we might go a little overtime to take questions. And in that case, to raise your hand. If you're on a phone or tablet, it's going to be under those 3 little ellipses again. And if you're on a laptop, it's actually going to be under reactions. So that could be a little confusing to find. So my name is Kaz Margina. I use she, her pronouns. I'm coming to you from South Bend, Indiana. Terry is also in Indianapolis. So you got 2 Hoosier women bringing this to you. So we definitely know what we're talking about when we're talking about coming from currently red states and talking to and needing to talk to people who may not necessarily agree with us or may not be active voters. So I'm just a volunteer. I've been volunteering on campaign since Mayor Pete ran for president back in 2019. And a lot of this course and a lot of all of Building Bridges courses, they spun out of Mayor Pete's campaign. So if anybody was familiar with his campaign, some of this stuff might look familiar. Actually, some of these slides come right from the training that I did from his campaign. And I've used it in all these other campaigns since. So working on like Biden's campaign, local campaigns, and currently working on local campaigns here in South Bend. So again, we're coming with you, Building Bridges for America. We're a nationwide, all volunteer group. And this is what we do. We want to bring more people into being active in political space. So we want more people to vote. We want more voters to become volunteers and more volunteers to become leaders and be running for office and growing those grassroots groups. So that's what we do here. We got several courses. We got 8 courses. We're kind of in the middle or towards the end now of our 8-course session. And we run these sessions continuously, just with little breaks in between, and we just scheduled out 2024. So we are rolling right into 2024. So if you have friends, others that want to, you think might benefit from taking these classes, or also if you have groups and stuff, great way, just send them over to our classes. We'll handle the training for them. So yeah, very excited to be looking forward all the way through 2024. All right, so what we're going to cover today is we are going to talk about dialogues between you and 3 groups of people: strong Democratic voters, conversations between you and infrequent voters, and then conversations between yourself and those crucial swing voters. So that's what we're going to cover today. And just as before we even get started, I want to get a little primer of what the kinds of conversations we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about dialogues. Real quick, just intro. What is a dialogue? So first step in a dialogue is handing the mic over to the person that you're talking to, is asking them how they feel and doing active listening. So it's a little bit different than just coming at people and talking at them with a script. You're first, like I said, listening, handing the mic over and listening. And then the second part of a dialogue is then making a connection to what they said and then sharing something personal about yourself. So sharing why you care, what is important to you. And then third is then providing some sort of information or that all important ask for them to join you in what you are doing. So just get that in your head. When we talk about conversations, we're going to be talking about this kind of dialogue. So our goals today, we're going to start off with what I call homework, doing your homework before you're going out and talking to people. You need to be prepared to, when it's your turn to speak, that you can be able to articulate that personal why. That's your stump speech. Whether you're a candidate or a volunteer making phone calls or knocking on doors, or whether you're just talking to friends and family and you want to get more people in your family to either vote or kind of see things from your side, or maybe even come along and volunteer with you. That's that personal stump speech. We're going to walk you through that step by step. Next is grow those empathy muscles to really understand where people in those three categories are coming from. And then we're going to walk you through active listening. So when you hand the person the microphone, the good habits to get into to moderate a very good conversation with that person, getting them to open up, and then how to make that connection, and then of course making that ask. So that's what we're going to cover today. First of all, if you are looking for or waiting for permission to go out and speak to voters, either from a campaign, like maybe you've reached out and you've asked a campaign, yes, I want to volunteer for you, and waiting to hear back. Maybe your local party, maybe you've reached out to them and you're waiting to hear back. Or some grassroots group, maybe again, you've reached out, you're waiting to hear back. You are no longer waiting. You now have permission right now, just because you care, right? It's the superpower of progressive people is that we care, we have this empathy. Because you care, you are now a messenger, and your job, right now, is to go out and talk with the people that you know, and then the people around you. So you already have that permission, you already have that job. Now let's go out and do it. So first part of your job is again, I call it your homework. It's to be prepared to articulate why you care. So we're going to walk you through step by step. This was actually covered in our previous course called How to Be Politically Active. If you took that course, this slide will look really familiar. If you haven't taken it, it's okay. We're going to go over it right now. So before you can open your mouth and be able to really articulate why you care in a compelling way, first you got to think about it. You got to think whether you're a candidate, who gets up on stage and gives their stump speech, right? They didn't just come up with that on the fly. They thought about it, they practiced it. And that way, when it is their time to speak, right, it comes out very natural. Same with you, whether you're, like I said, going to go out there and be knocking on doors for campaigns or just talking with friends and family, giving you that confidence that you can go out there and be able to speak and be compelling. That comes from doing this homework. So the first bit of doing this, what we call self-reflection, is to be thinking about what are those core values that you hold. What is in your gut that really drives you? If you see something wrong, what is it that in your gut just tells you, no, that's wrong? Or really, like, what brought you into the room here today, right? What was that said, this is so important that on a Thursday evening, I'm going to come into this room, right? What are those core values? So you got to dig down past the issues, past specific policy, and really dig down and find for yourself what in your gut is pushing you forward. And then from those core values, then you want to be able to think of a time that you really felt those. When was something that happened that made you really know that this is something that was really important to you and something that you really care about? So think about something personal going on in your life, or something personal that happened to you in your life that really let you know who you are right there in that core. And then that all important turn from who you are to the work that you're doing. I call this, and that is why. Share then, and that is why you then support a campaign, you support a candidate, you support a particular party, right? That's when you want to make that turn. And then the fourth step is kind of the really important step, is to then make that ask for people to come along and join you. So those are the basics. Again, if you were in our how to be politically active, we have a whole course that just walks you through these steps. So I do recommend, if you feel like you need more time with this, to go back and see that. We have a video and we got a workbook on it. So what does that look like in practice when you're writing out your personal stump speech? It would start off with you stating your feelings. I feel fired up. I feel excited. I feel nervous. I feel anxious. Whatever it is, right? The thing is that it's authentic to you. You're not reading a script, somebody else's feelings. This is you. You're being a little bit vulnerable, putting yourself out there and really showing people how you're feeling right now. So me personally, I feel fired up. I'm really excited. We're in the middle of our municipal election here in South Bend, and I'm really fired up. I'm really excited about it. And then use that core value. What is something that really motivates you, that's really important to you? For me here in South Bend, again, we're in municipal season. I love how something that's really important to me is access to public space, access to nature, having that be open for everybody in the city to be able to enjoy. So having those beautiful public spaces are something that's really important to me. Reason why it's so important to me is having that third space. So having moved to South Bend, having a third space outside of my home, outside of my work, having this beautiful place just really connected me to the community. And I think that's a really core, important piece of the quality of life here. And that is why I'm so fired up. I'm so excited about, Mayor Mueller and then his slate of Democrats that are running, because they all share that value for public space. And that's why I'm out right now. Just before coming on air, I was getting my door knocking buddy lined up for Saturday. I'm going to be out there Saturday morning and afternoon. Would you like to come with me? Right? So that's that personal why. So you start with that feeling, you talk about a core value, and that is why. Then you take that personal feeling and then you connect it to the campaigns, right? You're connecting to the campaigns from your values. And then I'm doing that ask, right? So I just practice that. You just have it down. So no matter who you're talking to, it just sort of flows. It kind of comes natural. And once I have that down, I now have confidence that when I do need to go out and I am talking to people, when it comes time to get personal and talk about the things that are important to me, I got something to say, right? So I call this homework. I say that you get this practice, this stump speech, get it down, and then you put it in your back pocket. You just stick it in your back pocket. We're going to use it later. So again, if you need more time to walk step by step through what that personal why, that personal stump speech would be for yourself. One, we got a workbook version for this course that is out there. So free, it's out there, open source, grab it, use it however you like. And it walks you through finding those core values. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, like I said, the whole course, How to Be Politically Active, walks you through step by step of finding that why and being able to be ready to articulate it. All right, so that was a homework. Like I said, you got that personal why. When it's your turn to speak and share what is important to you, it's in your back pocket. You're ready just to pull it out, right? And we call it muscle memory. If you can just, practice it enough times that Again, it just sort of flows out of you. That's going to make it a lot easier to go out and have these conversations. Now, next piece of the homework is we are going to be working on building, I call them the empathy muscles, so you can really understand where people are coming from. And so we always say in politics, you want to meet people where they're at. Well, let's give you a little bit of a start on understanding where people are coming from. That way it's easier for you to meet them where they're at. So first we're going to talk about people who volunteer, understanding who volunteers, why people don't. And that way, when you're out there talking to your strong Democrats, strong Democratic friends, you can make it easier to make that ask for them to join you in volunteering. Next is then the people who don't often vote or are non-voters and infrequent voters, is understanding why people don't vote or why they vote infrequently. And then the next is the people who will are swing voters, people who might vote for Republicans one year, Democrats the next. Really understanding where they're coming from and how we can reach out, how we can connect with them. So why are we talking about these three groups? Well, these are the groups that campaigns will target. If you've ever, and I hope that you have looked over at the National Democratic Training Committee, NDTC, they do phenomenal work, great training for campaigns. And I stole this right from their field campaign, field class on how to strategize to find your voters. So this is what campaigns are going to be looking at. They're going to group voters into different categories. First category at the top of each of these boxes is how likely are they to vote. So they're going to categorize people into their likeliness to vote. And then the next in each box is then how likely are they to support a Democrat? Or so are they a likely supporter? Are they a potential supporter? Are they going to support the opponent? So that's what campaigns do. They use data through systems like VAN, NGB VAN. California has its own system, but that's what it does. It groups people into these categories. And then what campaigns will do is they are not going to spend their time reaching out to people who are likely to support the opponent. It just if we were to reach out to people who are likely to support the opponent, that's something called deep relational organizing. It's something that would happen over a long period of time. Campaigns don't have that long period of time. That would be something more for grassroots groups to do. There's fantastic grassroots groups out there doing that work, but it's not going to happen in campaigns, so we're not going to actually talk about it here tonight. So that's why we're picking those known supporters that we're going to use, we're going to reach out to for recruitment, those swing voters that we're going to use for persuasion, and then also those infrequent voters who we are going to try and persuade to come out to vote. So for each one of these three categories, I have references that I recommend for each one. So if you want to, on your own, read up a little bit more on each of these three categories, I highly recommend for recruiting volunteers, Eitan Hersh's book, Politics is for Power, How to Move Beyond Political Hobbyism, Take Action and Make Real Change. I mean, the title says it all. So that's a fantastic book for learning how to reach out to people to get them to volunteer for the first time or for the first time in a long time. The next for our infrequent voters and non-voters, there's a fantastic study that came out after the 2016 campaign called the 100 Million Project, because 100 million voters did not vote in 2016, and we are living with the ramifications of that. So the Knight Foundation did a fantastic study of those people who stayed home, who chose not to vote. It's a very readable study. I'll be referring to it in the slides coming up. But I really recommend reading that whole thing to get a good insight into why people choose not to vote. Luckily, a lot of those people, those 100 million, did come out in 2020, and now at this point we want to recreate that magic. And the last one is for swing voters. A book I highly recommend for any time that you want to reach out to people that may be of a different political persuasion than yourself. So if you want to reach out to conservatives, I recommend George Lakoff's Don't Think of an Elephant. Again, I will be referring to all three of these in the slides coming up, but just want to point those out for further reading on your own time. All right, so first we're going to dive into people who volunteer, those known supporters for recruitment. So first of all, why do people volunteer? Again, this comes from Eitan Hirsch's book. Why do people volunteer? Well, there's 5 main reasons that Eitan has identified for why people push themselves over that barrier and into giving their time to campaigns. So the first reason is an issue. There could be an issue voter. So somebody that is motivated by a campaign that then advances some issue that is really important to them. Next is social. Some people like to come out to volunteer just because it's fun. It gives them a purpose. They get to meet like-minded people, just like people in this room right now. We also have people that are regulars. They're experienced volunteers. They volunteer every single time. And then we got opportunity, people that are seeking opportunity, people that either are looking for job experience, maybe just a rewarding experience, or also maybe there's a candidate they're really excited about and they want to volunteer for a chance to possibly meet the candidate. And then the last one is loss aversion. You literally cannot survive the status quo. You have to get out there. Things have to change. So for yourself, think about for yourself, if you want to respond in chat over there, why do you volunteer? Are you an issue? Are you motivated by an issue? Do you like the social aspect of it? Are you regular? Have you just always done this for so long now? Are you looking for a cool opportunity, or are you seriously just not going to survive? Or is it a mix of different ones, right? So let us know in chat which one you fall under.
Well, we've already had a comment that recruiting volunteers is so hard. So given that, we have folks who are motivated by the issue and social, issue and loss aversion. Someone who's myself, I'm a regular, issue, loss aversion. A lot of the folks on this I think we're coming through with a lot of a mix of the all, loss aversion, the issue. Then so that and all. So I think we're seeing people kind of focusing on. Then we're getting folks who are the regulars are kind of signing in now. So
to see that. I know I'm becoming a regular. I got a long way to go to reach to get to you, Terry. Terry, you've been doing this since because your mom was
since I was a child.
But I've definitely become a regular since 2019. I've never not been on a campaign. But my thing was, for me, was an issue. My big thing, I got into politics is climate. I work in climate research, and it's climate change, and talk about loss aversion, right? I literally could no longer sit on the sidelines. I no longer had the luxury of being able to not get involved. I had to get involved. So that was my issue that pushed me forward. But now I'm a regular, right? So kind of, and then also the social side. I do really like the social side of getting to know people through working on campaigns. So the reason why we bring that up is because when you're going out to recruit people, talk about why you volunteer, right? Talk about that. Say, hey, I'm out here because climate is the most important thing to me, and I can't sit on the sidelines, right? Maybe just, so talk about that. Say, hey, I'm out here. I think it's a lot of fun. I love the social side of it. So share that person, that reason why you are out there, and you might ignite that in someone else, right? Someone else might say, hey, you know what, an issue is really important to me, or hey, you know what, I really can't sit this out, right? I can't survive this status quo. I really do need to get out there. So share that, dig, just like you guys dug down to find out what it is in yourself. share that with your friends, share that with the people that, the strong Dems that are out there. But then let's also, like you said, put on our empathy, strengthen those empathy muscles, find out, why do people not volunteer? So Eitan also goes through those. And then understanding why people don't volunteer, what is that barrier between them volunteering or not, is gonna then can help you be able to, one, help them identify what really is holding them back, and then help them beyond it. So first of all, a lot of times people don't volunteer because it's scary. It is scary. It's something new. If they've never done it before, maybe, just putting yourself out there and, walking down the street with a clipboard in an unknown neighborhood, knocking on doors, that is not for the faint of heart anymore, right? It is scary. Another reason why people might really not volunteer, a lot of times they'll just say, I don't have the time. But what they're really saying is, I'm scared. Or they could be saying, you know what, I really just don't think I have the right disposition for it, right? Maybe I'm too shy. I know for me, I have terrible social anxiety. So the ask for me to go out and knock doors was huge, right? It was so much bigger than somebody who might be an extrovert and would, has more of a natural inclination for it. It was a big, huge ask for me. So I understand if somebody says, says no to wanting to volunteer, just because it is such a much bigger ask given their disposition. Also, some people might feel that they're just really more moderate, and a lot of times, a lot of the, maybe grassroots groups and stuff that are out there are just more ideological and maybe too much more progressive than they feel comfortable with. So that could be a reason why people might be a little more hesitant as Democrats to get out there, is because, yeah, they just might not feel that, they quite belong in a group where the loudest people might be a little bit more to the left, a little more progressive than they are. And then finally, if you're new, and you don't really feel connected to Democrats in your area, that could be a big reason why people might, when they're first invited, they might say, I really don't have time. What they might really be saying is that, they're new and they don't really feel fully welcomed into the community yet. So how do you help them? How do you get them past those barriers? Well, first of all, when people share, they start off by saying, I don't have time. But if you can say, share why you get out there and volunteer, maybe those barriers that you overcame might get them to open up and share exactly, the real reasons why they are hesitant to agree to volunteer. So first thing is always to validate those feelings. Once somebody does open up and share, you want to be there right with them and say, yeah, I feel that. I understand that. I can see where you're coming from. Maybe you feel the same way. Hey, I was right there. I was in your shoes, right? So validate those feelings as soon as they share them. And then again, share how you pushed yourself through over those barriers and got yourself into volunteering for the first time, and tell that story, right? Tell that story about the first time that you did something beyond voting. And then, share why you're out there volunteering. And then that another barrier, just that opportunity to get out there and volunteer, make it really easy for them to be able to show up and take part. So if you are on a campaign, if you just make the hours and the place that they can show up to for the first time, make it more sociable, make it more easy for them to show up for the first time, they're more likely to give it a shot. All right, so that was talking to our strong Dems and trying to get them over that barrier into doing more than voting. Yes, we want them to vote, but we want to reach out to them to ask them to do more than vote. All right, next is the people who do not vote. These are the infrequent voters who we need to persuade, not necessarily persuade to vote for a Democrat. It's just to show up and vote at all. So first of all, the biggest voting bloc that does not vote for Democrats is not Republicans. Democrats' biggest group that we can get votes from is non-voters. It's people who do not vote. So again, I'm going to be referring to the Knight Foundation study. In 2019, non-voters were actually the largest voting bloc, more so than Biden voters or Trump voters. Non-voters were actually the biggest voting bloc in 2016. Luckily, we did fantastic work leading up to the 2020 election. So in 2020, Biden voters were the largest voting bloc, followed by did not vote. And then Trump voters. So again, when you're thinking about, oh, we need to, if we're going to win in 2024, don't be thinking about, oh, we need to get a Trump voter to come over and vote for Biden. It's like, yeah, there's some of that, but the number one block that we're going to be getting votes from is going to be from infrequent voters or people who do not vote. So who are these voters? Who are these non-voters? So again, this comes from the Knight Foundation. They did a phenomenal, really deep a study where they interviewed a ton of these voters and came up with this data. So who are they? Who are the people that are choosing not to vote? First of all, if they did vote, these non-voters, if they did vote, 21% of them are actually established progressives. So if they did vote, they would vote for a Democrat, every time. So who are they? They tend to be slightly older, which may surprise people that they tend to be slightly older. About half of them have a college degree, and they're likely to be working full time. So why? Why did they stay home? Why did they choose not to vote? Well, a lot of it is they did not like any of the candidates, right? They weren't feeling it from any of the candidates. And they also kind of had lack of faith in that system. Now, this was a presidential. So when you talk about lack of faith in the system, we're talking a lot about the Electoral College. So they just had a lack in faith of the system that, their vote would really matter. And in some cases with the Electoral College, that might have been the case. But still, 21% of those established progressives were established progressives. So if we could get them out, they vote for Dems. Another big one, they did not like the candidates. It's just like Dems need, and I think we did a good job in 2020 that the presidency is not the only office that matters. There's down ballot as well, so people don't need to just fall in love with Joe Biden. That isn't the ask. The next is 20% of them were left-leaning moderates. Therefore, that meaning that again, if they did vote, 20% would likely vote for Democrats. So we're already up to 41% of those non-voters. If they did show up to vote, they would have voted for Democrats. Who are they? They're younger, they're racially diverse, and they're likely to be working full-time. And their major barriers are that they see voting as difficult. Like they haven't done it before, they don't know how to do it. There may be barriers between them and being able to vote. And they also just don't feel like politics really matters in their life. So making that connection between what is going on in their life, the issues, and the candidates, nobody made that connection for them. So they just don't feel like it matters. 17% are indifferent. They really just don't have any time to talk about it. It's mostly female who have children at home. I was that way. I know until, I was not politically active whatsoever up until 2019. Well, I was a single mom of 2 kids just trying to survive, man. I did not have the space, to be able to take that time to really be informed properly on politics. So I totally understand this group. And the reason why they don't vote is they don't have enough information on the candidates, right? They know their vote matters, but they don't have enough information to make an informed choice. So those are those non-voters. Does any of those people kind of sound familiar? If you think of people in your life, maybe they would fall into some of those categories. I definitely know a lot of other people who are, have small children, and it's just nowhere near in their priorities right now. So yeah, hopefully just understanding who they are will give you a little bit of insight into how to then, when you're reaching out to non-voters, who they are and how to reach out to them. So again, the main reasons why people do not vote is they feel the system doesn't work for them. So they feel that the elections will not represent the will of the people, or they do not like any of the candidates. Another reason is they feel that politics doesn't matter. They do not make that connection between how those decisions, political decisions, are made by the people that we elect and how it affects our lives, right? I like to say politics walks right into our lives, walks right into our houses, into our pocketbooks, right into our bodies. And but we need to understand that. We need to be, somebody needs to point that out. So nobody's ever pointed that out to them. And finally, they feel underinformed. 84% of people, of non-voters, don't really follow politics. 58% of them just bump into it or hear it from others. So who knows where they're getting their source of stuff. And 74% actually think that voting is hard. Again, they haven't done it before. They just, if you haven't done it before, it's big, it's scary. You just don't know how to do it. So how do I reach out to our non-voters? Again, when people share that they're non-voters and they share if they're able to, say, hey, I just don't think that politics really matters to me. Or maybe say, I just don't like either of the candidates, right? So when they say that stuff, again, validate their feelings. They're opening up, they're sharing with you. So, don't dismiss them. Don't say that they don't know that they're just underinformed. No, you validate their feelings. Those are real, true feelings. So validate them. Say, I feel that, right? Just like I shared with you, hey, prior to 2019, that was me, right? So I could share that with somebody who says that that they're not, that they don't know what's going on. Right. And then when you want to talk to them, you stick to those issues, right? Stick to those issues and talk about making that connection between those issues and then your personal life. Maybe then it'll help them to be able to make those connections between the issues and those candidates. So again, nobody's made that connection for them. Now you got their attention, you're talking to them, you can make those connections for them. I just did that with my daughter a few weeks ago when she didn't understand why she would need to vote for Biden, and I tied it to healthcare, to bodily autonomy, right? Her being a 25-year-old woman, that's something really important to her, and saying it's just like, she was trying to get me to sell her on Joe Biden. It's like, I don't need to sell you on Joe Biden. All I can say is that Joe Biden is going to protect your bodily autonomy, and the other side is going to continue to take it away. That's simple. We don't need to get any further than that. So again, making that connection across. And then again, I just did the connect candidates to those issues and then provide that information on how to vote. Again, if they're infrequent voters or they've never voted before, something for you, if you vote every time, it's so easy for you. Well, if they've never done it before, that's a big barrier for them. Walk them through it. Walk them through step by step. What is it like to vote? What does it mean? How do you do research? How do you find out who you're going to vote for? How do you know where to go? Right? Walk people through that. Don't belittle that. That is a real huge barrier for people, and walk them through it. All right, so we've gotten through through our strong Dems. We've covered our non-voters, and now it's to get to that persuasion for swing voters. So first, we're going to build up those empathy muscles for where are these people at? How are they, 1 year voting for Donald Trump, and the next year, or 1 year voting for Obama, and next year voting for Donald Trump, right? Who are these people? Where are they at? How can I start to meet them where they are at? Well, this comes from George Lakoff's "Don't Think of an Elephant" book, where he explains just how in the US we have these two moral systems. In the US, we have conservative and progressive moral systems here in the US. This isn't new. This isn't something that developed during the Reagan era or something. No, this is since the very founding of America, we have had these two moral systems, the progressive and the conservative moral systems. The progressive system is that means that you were raised in a family that was more focused on nurturing. You would be taught to care about everyone. And then that sense of morality, that right or wrong, comes from taking care of others. And then in a more conservative family model, there would be a strict hierarchy that you would be adhering to. That yes, you care about people, but you care about people more in your family, in your in group. And then your sense of morality, that right or wrong, comes from disciplined. How disciplined are you in order to get the things to achieve things? So these are pure models. I mean, you know, so nobody is really no family is really necessarily completely one or another. Most people are somewhere in between. But if you just understand that, you know, the way that you were raised is not the way that everybody was raised. Everybody is different. We're all coming from into the world using, you know, whatever was imprinted on us from our upbringing, and then our life experiences too. It's not just how you were raised, it's your life experiences as well. And what it did is it wired your brain for one morality system that is unique to you. It wired your brain. And within that wiring, it actually means that when we will experience facts differently, right? A fact, do you think a fact is a fact? It's like, no, we will actually see them and experience them in different ways. Again, it's just our brains are just wired differently. Logic, right? Something that might be logical to you might not be logical to somebody else. Because again, the way that our brains were wired, one person would see it as logical, another person won't. And then of course, morality would be different, right? What is important? What is, you know, caring for everyone as opposed to caring for people in your in-group, right? Those really basic morals are going to be different. So what that means is that when you are out and you're talking to people that are potentially have a different, coming from a different moral model than yourself, you can't use facts. You can't convince them on your side using facts, because that's something that you might not have in common. Same with logic. You can't make a logic argument with somebody who might have a different sense of logic than you. And then of course, then that morality, you might have those things, they might not be the same. So what can you use? What do we have in common? Going back to those values that we started off with, about what are those core values, talking and speaking from those values, what is important to you, those words, those are things that we will that we share, that, you know, even if somebody doesn't care about the same things you do, by you saying that it's something that you really care about, that it's something that's important to you, these core values, speaking from those, people will understand. They might not agree, but they'll understand. And then your personal story, things that happened to you, right? That we're human beings. Storytelling is the very, very basis of our communication. So when you tell a personal story, that person, one, they're going to listen, and two, they're going to understand where you're coming from. So again, making things personal and then talking from values, that is something that you can do. And then when you do share that, share those stories, you want to make them personal, because no matter who you're talking to, people have empathy. They care about, at least they care about, you know, maybe not everyone, but they'll care about people in the in-group, people they know. So again, if you are talking not about some theoretical person, but you're talking about yourself or someone you know, then again, no matter who you're talking to, they're going to be able to understand you. So what does that look like? Is that common language that George Lakoff speaks of in his book. The common language, these are these values, these value words. There's a whole bunch of them. I got just a little smattering of them up on the screen. So these values, things like loyalty, security, freedom, family, these are values, core values. And, you know, find the ones that work for you. Authenticity is super important. But if I call these nod along words, that when you say these words, when I say, you know, loyalty is really important to me, freedom is really important to me, I call those not along words, right? When you say freedom's really important to you, everybody's going to get that. Everyone's going to agree. Maybe they might interpret, for themselves exactly what freedom, it might be a little different than the way I see it. But when I say freedom's important to me, they know where I'm coming from. They're going to nod along. So when you start that conversation, you want to be looking for these things that you have in common. You say you might not have facts in common, might not have logic in common, but you'll have these values in common. And that way you can start off that conversation on finding that common ground. So again, when you're having that dialogue, you want to first be asking people how they feel and then actively listening. That's what we're going to get into next. And then when you're making that connection, sharing that story, talking from those values, those shared values, telling a personal story, your personal why, right? You're going to pull that out of your back pocket. You got it ready to go. And then providing that information in that ask. So let's dive into that active listening, because the best way to get somebody to listen to you, so the best way to be heard and to is to first connect and actively listen. So what you want to be doing is, like I said, first handing the person the microphone. It might seem a little counterintuitive. It's like, wait, I want them to hear me. But actually the best way to get them to hear you and understand you is you first listen and get them to open up so you can connect with them. So that's what we're going to walk through is the good habits for active listening. Just a little reminder, we're talking about a dialogue. When you're talking about politics, we're talking about having a dialogue, which is very different than the way most people think about politics. Most people, if they think about politics, they think about debates, because maybe that's what they know of in politics, is watching candidates scream at each other on a debate stage. Or maybe they think of it in terms of discussion. This would be what you see on cable news shows, is you will have people that are coming on just sharing their side, right? Lobbing, talking points at each other and then going to their corners, right? We're talking about a dialogue. A dialogue is a very different way of having a conversation from those other two. And it's something people are probably used to when they think about talking about politics, is being very open-minded and curious about where that person is coming from. Again, being focused then on listening, asking questions, moderating a good discussion to get that person to open up, and then you also being vulnerable. There are things that people usually associate with talking politics, but it's the way we should be talking about politics. Again, politics just a natural, normal part of our lives. So we should be talking about it in natural, normal ways, which is dialogue. And then finally, the final thing that makes a dialogue different is that you're asking questions so you can understand, right? You want to go into that conversation wanting to understand more than you want to be understood. And I like to say it also means you don't assume, never assume, make people say it, right? Keep asking questions and until people actually say it. Don't let things go unsaid. Those dog whistles and stuff that people might use, make them actually, don't let them get away with it. Make them actually say it. So again, to focus on listening, when you first go into these conversations, you want to be orienting yourself to think, I'm going to go in and I want to understand where that person is coming from. Again, more than you want to be understood. Again, it sounds counterintuitive, especially if you're out door knocking, right? It's like, hey, you only got, a little bit of time at the door, but no, actually, it's the best way to get them to actually hear you is to open up with questions and get them being able to share for themselves. And it's just people want to be heard. They want to be understood. There's not a lot of opportunities in modern day to be asked and to be listened to and be understood. So yeah, let's give that to people as we're going out there and talking to people. So let's give a little example. Is you can open up with questions. So orient yourself to thinking that when I go into these conversations, I'm going to open up with a question. It can be really simple. It can just be, hey, you know what? I'm really excited about this upcoming election. What issues are important to you right now? It's a good opening question. Is an open-ended question. And actually, a little tip. This is what we are saying at the doors in South Bend right now. So our campaign. So we got a coordinated Democratic campaign, and when we're knocking on the doors, the very first things that we ask is the very first thing we open up with is, hey, how are you doing? How do you think the city's doing? What kind of issues are important to you right now? Right. So we're handing the microphone right to them, and we're getting them to talk. And I can say the body language difference as soon as, they see me coming, it's pretty obvious that I'm coming for a campaign. But when instead I just say, hey, how are you doing? How do you think the city's doing? What issues are important to you? Their shoulders drop, the doors open a little bit more. Right. And people start to get more comfortable and they open up. Right. So it's a great way to open up a little. So then you train yourself not only to open up with a question, an open-ended question like that, and to be really curious and want to know. The thing is, you also train yourself just to, no matter what they come back and say, you want to smile and you want to be curious about where they're coming from. And you want to be able to, you want to think about asking them more questions to get them to open up a little bit more. We used to say back on Pete's campaign that all people were all in very complicated relationships with ourselves, right? We change our views and our thoughts and stuff all the time. So let's use this time that we're talking to them to be able to help people to be able to figure things out. Like I said, a lot of times this would be one of the first times people are going to be asked about what their opinion is, how they feel on an issue. It's going to be the first time. So, let people feel that out, right? Kind of moderate that conversation with them just by asking more questions. So, again, no matter what people come back and say, have that smile on your face, be curious, react to what they're saying and in being curious. Oh, that's so interesting. Oh, I think I understand. If they're not getting personal enough, right? If they're maybe talking about things in theory, right? It's like, but they're not really talking about themselves. Maybe they're talking about something they read on the news, but not necessarily something that impacted their personal life. You say, yeah, I understand, but I'd like to know about you. Tell me about you. What's something that's going on in your life? So get them to try to open up and be more vulnerable. The basis of trust is vulnerability. So you being the face of the campaign, if you can get them to open up to you and be a little vulnerable, and if you can return that, open up and be a little vulnerable as well, you're building trust with that person, and then therefore you're building trust between that person and the campaign. So some good habits to get into so you can practice what's called active listening so we got it. This is in our workbook, is the active listening guide. And the first one is when you're going out there to have these conversations, be intentional about listening, that you are going to, when that person responds, you're really going to listen. You're going to be very curious for what they have to say. It's not your time to daydream. It's also not your time to form a rebuttal. This isn't what's going on there. So you're paying attention, and the only things that you want to be thinking about are trying to find those personal connections between what the person is saying and where you're coming from, right? If you can find things that you have in common, if you could find connections, don't just log them, right? Say them. Hey, me too. Oh, I feel that as well, right? So be looking for those connections. Also, when the person does open up and start to share, don't interrupt them. Let them have let them speak. Is like, let them finish what they're saying, even if it's something you disagree with. Let them finish what they're saying. It's just being respectful, and then therefore, when it's your time to talk, they're going to let you finish as well. So make sure you're not interrupting their time. Little habits that are good just to actually show that you are actively listening is doing little things like nodding along or saying, oh yeah, I see. Yeah. Little things like that are little signals to that person that you're actually listening and being attentive. And that will go a long way, again, to getting that person to feel like they are being heard. And then using those door openers to get them to keep talking. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, tell me more about that. And getting these down as muscle memory, again, just habit, just straight up habit. I have go-to ones, that I have, if someone says something that's more along like a talking point or something, I just have this go-to, you know what, I think I've heard that before, but tell me what that means to you. Right. So you just get them down as muscle memory. It just makes it easier for you to moderate those good conversations. And then just reflecting what the person says, kind of the easiest thing you can do to make someone feel heard is just reflect back the words to them. And it also lets you know that, I really want to try to understand what you're saying. So, it sounds to me like you're saying this, right? So getting in the habit of saying those kind of things to moderate a conversation that way really helps people feel heard. We're almost out of time, so I'm not going to go through all of these other than to say that these are, again, they're in the workbook. I do recommend grabbing that, grabbing the active listening guide and just keeping it with you. I know I keep it at my side when I'm phone banking as well, like it's almost like my little blanket. Because it helps me remember my good habits to get into. But yeah, just practicing them. Practice makes perfect. And then again, making that connection, right? So that person is speaking, you're getting them to open up, you're getting to understand where they're coming from. Then you can say, oh, me too. And now it's your turn to pull out your homework out of your back page. You've got your personal stump speech. Now's your time to deliver it, right? And you don't need to just have one. You can have several if you feel more comfortable with that. But pull it out. It doesn't have to be a one-to-one comparison. Like if that person says the most important thing to them is crime, and you're saying the most important thing to you is having good public parks, it's like, you can come out and say, public parks are important to you. You don't have to meet them exactly on their issue. You can say, just again, be authentic to who you are and what is the most important thing to you. But again, pull this out of your back pocket, pull out that stump speech there for you're sharing those again from those core values. You're sharing that personal story. You're making that connection from an issue over to the candidate. And then you're making always be including that ask, say, will you come out and vote? Voting starts on October 11th, right? Get all that stuff down to muscle memory as well. And a couple last things just to wrap us up here is, again, I kind of already touched on that staying open, being vulnerable, then builds trust, because again, the root of trust is that vulnerability, and then that trust will be reciprocal. Again, can feel a little counterintuitive to first get that person to open up, but again, you get them to open up, they are much more likely to actually listen to you. They feel heard, they feel respected, much more likely to return that onto you as well. Also, I'm a big body language person. Body language is important. So if you want that person to feel like you're open and that you're willing to share, keep your arms open, don't cross your arms. Even on the phone, even if you're doing phone banking or texting with friends or whatever, I swear people can tell when you are open. It just makes you more open yourself. And then finally, at the very end, when you also make that ask, we can also offer a service. Again, we're talking about people who don't vote that often. You can say, hey, let's together, let's find your polling location, right? Maybe, hey, you need a ride to the polls. We can arrange that for you. And the most important thing that you can say is when somebody asks you a question and you don't know the answer, the most important thing you can say is, I don't know, but let's look that up. Right? Saying you don't know is being vulnerable, right? You're saying, I don't know everything. But then hey, let's look that up. We're all holding phones. We can all look at we can all look up that information. It both helps that person find that information, find good sources of information. And then again, making that personal ask for them to come out and vote. Maybe you're asking people to volunteer. Make that ask every single time, no matter how the conversation went. Even if you and that person didn't agree on one thing, make the ask. People need to be asked over and over and over again to come out to vote. People need to be asked over and over and over again in order to finally come out and volunteer. Be one of those asks. Be one of those times that people get that ask. So put in an ask in there every single time. All right, so that's it. I just got a couple quotes to end with here. And so from Maya Angelou, she says, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So again, if you made that person feel heard, you made them feel respected, that's going to go a long way for the campaign that you're working for. And then Pete gets a little bit more to the point. So Pete Buttigieg says, how people feel about you is largely driven by how you make them feel about themselves. So again, make that person feel respected, make them feel heard, and then they're going to feel like a respected, heard person, and that's going to go really far. So we got a couple step-by-step how-tos. I know we've gone over time, I'm so sorry, but we got a couple step-by-step how-tos out there. Really, if you're on campaigns or if you're running groups, we have step-by-step guides, slides, and a video on how to canvass. So how to do a door knock, exactly what does that look like? If you want to see this in action, you can watch the how to canvass video, and then also how to phone bank. Again, the workbook has all of the active listening, and then coming up with that stump speech for yourself. And then again, we're building bridges. And yeah, we just started, we're trying to cover our operating costs for the year. So if you like this, if you want to get out there and donate, we got a link out there. We're looking for really small donations just so we can keep offering these courses.